So, you became the new school governing body member. Very excited because you have 3 years as part of your term to serve. And here you arrive for your first meeting and you hear that you are also an employer because you are part of the SGB collective. So, what does it mean that you are an employer? So that is what we're going to look at during this short video. I'm Sharon Lewin. Hello everybody. Nice to have those who are regulars back again. And if you're new to the channel, then welcome. We just love to have new people here. And as you can see there, I have on the slide SGB as an employer, and that is covered in the South African Schools Act Section 20 from subsection 4 right through to subsection 11. Okay, so let's get the ball rolling. You can see there that the Act makes provision for you to be an employer. You may, as the SGB, decide to establish posts. So you may establish educator posts and you may establish non-educator posts. Right? So you may employ educator staff and non-educator staff. But what you need to remember is that this function, should you take advantage of it, because all SGBs may have this function, then you must just remember that this particular function or responsibility comes with huge obligations, with huge legal responsibilities. So that is what we're going to run through quickly, right? So the first thing you need to do is, if you want to employ additional staff members, because remember, the state supplies every school with a number of staff members, educator staff members and non-educator staff members. And when we speak about the staff that is allocated to a school, the number of posts that are allocated to a school, then we speak about the staff establishment. Now, if you as a school governing body want to employ additional staff members, members that are additional to the staff establishment as supplied by the state, then you need to take cognizance of the following, right? You need to first of all establish what is going to be your SGB establishment. In other words, you have to decide and discuss what posts you need, if there are educated posts or non-educated posts, and why you need those posts. So you need clarity on why you are creating those additional educated posts or non-educated posts. Then you also have to discuss and decide on how you're going to fund those posts, because those posts will be established by you as the SGB, and therefore you are going to carry the salary costs and all other costs related to those SGB employees. Okay, so you are not going to get funding from the state to cover all the salaries. The state does specify what norms and standards amount you may use towards supplementing the salary of your SGB employees, but you need to raise your own funds to pay for those additional teaching and non-teaching staff that you have employed. Then of course you also have to discuss whether those posts that you are creating, not the people, we're just talking about the posts that you are going to create. You need to know how many educator posts you want to create, how many non-educator posts you want to create. And then you also have to decide whether you're going to need those posts in just for a short term. And when we say short term, it could be for a few months or just for a year, or whether those additional SGB posts that you are establishing are going to be a permanent post at that school, because you have worked out and discussed and decided that if you really want to provide quality education at the school, you cannot do without those posts. Okay, so those are the questions you have to really discuss as an SGB. Then of course the SGB will be responsible for the hiring process. the selection and recruitment process. So the SGB manages all the processes, right? Remember, when you fill a post, when there is a vacancy and that post is being covered by the state, it's part of the school's establishment, then you will do the same or similar processes, but you will only recommend your preferred candidate to the head of department or the head of education. If you, however, establish your own posts, then you will have to manage all the processes of that hiring process, from making decisions around why you need the post, and then advertising the post, setting up your interview and selection committees, and then eventually deciding on who is going to fill that post. So you won't make a recommendation, you will in fact choose your preferred person, and then your SGB will accept or ratify that decision. Just bear in mind that we're talking about the entire SGB, because I looked at one of the questions asked by Karen, and she wanted to know, why are SGBs not taking charge of this process? Now, remember, it is an SGB function, so all the SGB members, all the governors must be included and involved in this process. So that means your principal, the teacher reps, the parent reps, the non-educator reps, and if you are a high school, obviously your learner reps as well. All those governors need to be involved in the hiring process, because all those members make up your SGB. If you don't comply with that provision, then of course you are guilty of an irregularity, and there are definitely consequences, legal consequences, that you are going to have to bear. Okay, so I just spoke about the first part, where you're going to have to manage all the processes. You're going to have to see that the recruitment and selection processes are happening. You must make sure that all your SGB members are involved in this process or included in the discussions around these processes. And then, of course, very importantly, the SGB is responsible for all the contractual obligations that are connected to those SGB posts that you have created. The state does not take responsibility. The state is not liable for any contractual obligation that you have with your employees that you have employed or appointed at the school, right? The state is not a joint employee, as I mentioned there. Then, of course, you need to ensure that you do comply with all the legal requirements. For example, you must ensure that you apply the South African Schools Act in terms of employing educator and non-educator staff. You must apply the Labor Relations Act. You have to apply the Public Service Act, and of course all other applicable laws that apply to the employment of educators or non-educators at your school. And then when you do the actual interview and selection process, you must ensure that you factor in those values and principles that we have in Section 195 of our Constitution, the country's Constitution. Then, of course, you must also ensure that you project those posts in your annual school budget. You must include the posts, and you must provide a motivation why you need the post, so that the parents, when they do vote on the school budget, that they are clear about the number of posts that you are creating at your school, for what reasons you are creating those additional posts at the school, for how long those posts will be existing at your school, and so forth, right? And then, of course, you must give the projected cost so that people know exactly what it's going to cost. So that is essentially just about your role as an employer. It is a huge responsibility, and it's absolutely essential that you understand that when your school decides to employ SGB employees or staff, then you have to consider all those requirements. And then on that note, I have completed the section. Cheerio.